Let's talk about real estate. Alcatraz style. Imagine searching for the most escape-proof location in America. A place so intimidating that even the most hardened criminals would think twice before trying to break out. That's exactly what the US government set out to find in the early 20th century. The US government needed a prison that screamed, "Don't even try it." They wanted a fortress that would send a clear message: this is where hope goes to die. Gangsters like Al Capone were escaping or bribing their way out of regular prisons. The criminal underworld was thriving, and law enforcement was struggling to keep up. They needed isolation, security, and a psychological edge. Alcatraz offered all three, wrapped up in a single, forbidding package. Enter Alcatraz Island, a chunk of rock in San Francisco Bay, surrounded by freezing, deadly currents. The island was small, windswept, and completely cut off from the city by a moat of icy water. Even if you escaped the walls, the bay would finish the job. The water was so cold and the currents so strong, survival was nearly impossible. The island had been a military fort and prison, but the real selling point was the water, a natural moat. No other prison in America had such a built-in defense. Alcatraz was a statement, the end of the line for America's most dangerous criminals. It was where the government sent those it couldn't control anywhere else. During Prohibition, crime was out of control, and the public wanted action. The rise of organized crime demanded a new kind of prison, one that could actually hold the country's most notorious lawbreakers. Alcatraz became a symbol, a fortress built to crush hope. Its silhouette against the bay was a warning to anyone who thought they could outsmart the law. In the 1930s, the Department of Justice took over and began a massive renovation. They poured resources into making Alcatraz the most secure prison in the country. They weren't just patching up an old prison, they were building a legend. Every detail was designed to keep prisoners in and hope out. The goal, a facility so secure, the name alone would terrify criminals. Alcatraz was meant to be the last stop, the place where escape was unthinkable. Turning a windswept rock into a maximum security prison was a dirty job, but it created an icon. The transformation was as much about psychology as it was about bricks and bars. Alcatraz became the most feared address in the American justice system, a place where the myth of escape was as powerful as the reality of confinement. Once Alcatraz was chosen, the transformation began. The Bureau of Prisons, led by Sanford Bates, wanted more than a tough prison. They wanted an impenetrable fortress. Tons of concrete and tool-resistant steel were shipped in. Every door, window, and bar was designed to crush escape dreams. The main cell house was gutted and rebuilt, with new cell blocks and the infamous D block for solitary. Cells were tiny, barely enough room to move. Remote-controlled locks and tear gas canisters in the dining hall added layers of control. Gun galleries and fortified tunnels made escape nearly impossible. By 1934, Alcatraz was reborn, a monument to security, built on paranoia and ingenuity. It was a man-made hell, iconic, inescapable, and ready for America's worst. What set Alcatraz apart from every other prison in America? Why did it become a symbol of fear and fascination even decades after its closure? Ruthless rules and relentless control defined daily life here. Guards enforced discipline with unwavering authority, and the threat of punishment was always present. At other prisons, privileges like recreation, mail, and visits were considered basic rights for inmates. Here, you started with nothing, no comforts, no freedoms. Every small privilege had to be earned through perfect behavior and obedience. The system was designed to break spirits, not just bodies. The goal was to strip away hope and individuality, leaving only compliance. The infamous silence rule meant inmates couldn't talk for most of the day, turning the prison into a tomb of quiet desperation. Even a whisper could lead to harsh punishment. One man per cell, no roommates, no alliances, and no chance to plot escapes together. Isolation was absolute. Constant surveillance, one guard for every 3 inmates, meant you were always being watched, every move scrutinized from above and below. Alcatraz was a destination for the worst of the worst, not a starting point. Only those who defied other prisons were sent here. Only the most incorrigible troublemakers from other prisons were sent here. Men who had already proven impossible to control elsewhere. The population was a concentrated mix of America's most dangerous and cunning criminals, each with a reputation for violence or escape. No first-timers, no petty thieves, just hardened criminals who had already tested the limits of the justice system. The psychological pressure was immense: endless isolation, enforced silence, and the constant knowledge that you were truly alone, cut off from the world. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison, it was a psychological experiment in control, testing the limits of the human mind under stress. It was designed to erase hope, to make escape seem impossible, and to remind every inmate that freedom was out of reach. That's what made it infamous, and why its legend endures to this day. Life on Alcatraz was a grinding routine. The day started at 6:30 a.m. with a blaring bell and strict bed-making. 4 daily head counts, miss one, and the whole island locked down. Breakfast in the gas chamber dining hall, good food, but tension thick as steel. Work was a privilege, most spent hours in their cells. Yard time was rare, and the view of San Francisco was a cruel reminder of lost freedom. Guards lived on the island too, their families isolated by duty. The day ended with dinner, another count, and lockup at 9:30 p.m. Nights were filled with silence, broken only by distant foghorns and restless inmates. Both prisoners and guards were trapped by the rock. Every day was a test of endurance and sanity. Survival was the only goal. Alcatraz was home to America's most notorious criminals. Al Capone arrived in 1934, stripped of power and reduced to inmate AZ-85. He was just another number, broken by the system. George "Machine Gun" Kelly, once a feared gangster, became a model prisoner, quiet and forgotten. Robert Stroud, the Birdman, never kept birds here. He was isolated for violence, not kindness. Alvin "Creepy" Karpis, public enemy number 1, served over 25 years, longer than anyone else. These men were legends on the outside, nobodies on the rock. Alcatraz was designed to erase reputations and crush egos. The prison's purpose was clear: contain the uncontainable. For these infamous inmates, Alcatraz was the end of the road. Their stories fueled the prison's legend. They were proof that even the most dangerous could be broken. 14 escape attempts, 36 men, almost all failed. The most famous, June 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. They spent months chipping away at their cell walls with stolen spoons and a homemade drill. Dummy heads fooled the guards during bed checks. They crawled through vents, climbed to the roof, and launched a raft made from raincoats. On June 11th, they vanished into the bay. The next morning, empty beds, dummy heads, and a massive manhunt. No bodies were ever found, just a few scraps washed ashore. The FBI declared them drowned, but rumors persist: postcards, confessions, sightings. Did they make it? No one knows. Their escape turned Alcatraz from inescapable fortress to legendary mystery. The question mark endures. Why close Alcatraz? For decades, the island fortress stood as the ultimate symbol of American justice, isolated, imposing, and nearly impossible to escape. But beneath its legendary reputation, Alcatraz was facing mounting problems that couldn't be ignored. The very location that made it so secure, surrounded by frigid, treacherous waters, also made it a logistical nightmare and a money pit for the government. Every single necessity, food, water, fuel, and even the smallest supplies, had to be shipped in by boat, day after day. The cost of simply keeping the prison running was staggering, and maintenance expenses soared year after year. By the 1960s, the prison's infrastructure was crumbling. The salt air had eaten away at the walls, and repairs became constant and costly. Alcatraz was now 3 times more expensive to operate than any other federal prison. In 1963, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy made the decision to close Alcatraz for good, ending its era as America's most infamous penitentiary. The last inmates were escorted off the island, and the heavy prison doors slammed shut, marking the end of a notorious chapter. But the story of Alcatraz was far from over. In 1969, Native American activists seized the abandoned island, transforming it into a powerful symbol of protest and reclaiming it as a site of cultural significance. Today, Alcatraz has been reborn. It's a top tourist destination, drawing visitors from around the world as part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Visitors now walk the same cell blocks that once held America's most notorious criminals, stand in Al Capone's cell, and feel the chill of D-Block's isolation. Alcatraz is now a museum, a national landmark, and a living reminder of a dark but endlessly fascinating chapter in American history. Its stories continue to captivate and educate new generations. From end-of-the-line for hardened criminals to a must-see destination for millions, Alcatraz's legend lives on, its legacy forever etched into the American imagination.